Welcome to Her Enterprise with me, Melissa.
Hey, and me, Kelly.
And it's me, Nicole.
Join this group of
entrepreneurial women building community and masterminding through our problems.
So we can all
lean into your values,
cut what doesn't serve you,
and grow in abundance. Let's get to it, changemakers.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Her Enterprise Podcast 011. We are doing a summary episode today because we've reached the end of season 1. Woo! Yeah, and so we have Nicole here. Say hi, Nicole.
Hi, everybody. Yay, we celebrate the season. Woo!
And we have Kelly here. Say hi, Kelly.
Hey. I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk about a few things. We wanted to all go back and revisit our masterminds and let you know how we're doing after setting those goals. We also wanted to talk about what to look forward to for next season, what kind of topics we're excited to talk about. And then Nicole's going to drop us a question too, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So who wants to start? Who wants to revisit their mastermind goals?
It's up to you, Kelly. You want to go first? I can go first.
I might as well start so I don't forget them before we go. But so my two goals. So my mastermind's the most recent one, and it's about to drop. And I just listened to it, and it was so fascinating listening to it and listening to like the podcast about myself, and that was just really fascinating in general. But my two goals that I came away with, it was one was to do a mind map, and the other one was to just start recording. And so I did the mind map, but I didn't start recording. But my whole, I don't know, there were a lot of different things that came up and different excuses that I need to like revisit and set a time date to just start recording. And it was so refreshing just to like re-listen to what we had recorded and everybody's approaches. I feel like every time I listen to it, I get something else out of it, or I hear something fresh another time. And that is just really good, where I was like, oh man, Melissa said that. And I wasn't even able to like hear it until I hear the edited part. And I was like, oh no, that's actually a really great idea. And not that I thought it was a terrible idea. I just didn't have a framework in my mind for it to be. So, so I think I'm challenged in some ways to like, right, I gotta just start recording because there's room for me on the internet and whatever. I don't feel as much hesitation as I did going into the recording, where I was like, guys, is there room for me on the internet? And then I think I'm just like, I get to this point where I just kind of panic for too long that I get bored with panicking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's boring being anxious about it. So I'm like, no, I just have to do it. So maybe that'll be my thing. Like by the time this airs, I'll put in the notes like, hey guys, I did it. And then here's where you go.
Nice. So in the episode notes for this episode, there might be a link that says, and here's Kelly's new podcast.
Yeah. And that was one of the tips was that Nicole gave us to like tell people you're going to do it. So then you're like, oh shoot, now I actually have to show up. So I have to do it now. So see, you already got me. That's it. And then I did realize, I think with like the mind mapping part and listening to the first episode where I'm being interviewed, is that I think I'm totally overthinking it, that people don't have all the same framework or categories of like the way they think about things as I do. Whereas I'm like, is it economics or is it finance or is it enterprise? Like these are all like very separate, distinct categories in my mind. And I want to fit, even though I never fit a box, I want to fit some kind of box. And I don't think people actually care. They're like, what do I do? Or what are your things behind it? And I don't think I realized how philosophical I am. I like loved listening to you guys like try and pull me back to earth, where you're like, okay, but what did you do? Anyway.
I like your philosophy. I feel like that gives a lot of insight to people too. People don't always think about it with this big overarching theme, and we need to zoom out sometimes and see the big picture. So I will say I think that's a gift of yours, however it came across for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Nicole? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really great. I learned a lot from launching this book. And when we did our mastermind, I was launching the first series in my ADHD series. Just a little context. I'm dropping a full printed copy book, but I broke it into 5 separate series as like little ebooks. And I had just dropped the first one. So one of my first goals was to change the price because we were talking about sustainability and my time and making it sustainable for me and my family to continue to give this value and produce this work. So I changed the price from $2.99 to $5.99. And my sales weren't great. Like I didn't hit my 50, but the point is that I'm going to get to, with each book that I drop, I get a bigger following. So like I just dropped the second book and I actually switched the pricing. So now the first book's on sale for $2.99 because a new one just came out. And I already got 12 books sold. So like I think I sold 12 books fully for the homeschool book. And I got 12 sales of this book within the first like 2 days. So I obviously have been learning how to, launch it better and promote it better. And then I think the other good part is I actually use it to build my email list, whereas before I sent a lot of free material and PDFs over Facebook Messenger and to friends and said, please take a look at my work. When you have time, give me an Amazon review. This time I only sent 2 chapters of book 2. I sent a sample of book 3, which is dropping in a couple weeks. And there's explicit instructions on how to leave a review. And I actually got feedback from people like, hey, like my one friend that asked for the book, he's like, hey, I don't shop on Amazon, so I have to spend $50, right? I didn't even know that you have to have spent $50 to be able to leave a review on Amazon. So little things like that, little tweaks that I'm learning how to make it so it's accessible for everybody. But I think I've already gotten like a bunch of people on my email list because I did it in a different way where I still gave value, but I didn't give away everything. And I think that's important for me. Like I have to be able to learn each time if I want to monetize this and make it sustainable. The other goal was to put it on Sendowl and put a copy that's just from my website, but I'm actually going to wait and do that with a full printed book where I can really make it like a $35. It's going to be like almost a 250, 300 page book. So that's still in my mind, but I didn't want to do Sendowl for ebooks. I want to wait and do that where I can really, have a printed physical book. I still like physical books. Maybe it's my age, but anyway. So
no, that's great. And that's so interesting. I didn't know that about Amazon and book reviews either. So hopefully, all our entrepreneurial listeners got a clue there of, this might be a little something that they might need to work around. Did you figure out a workaround for that?
Well, if you buy the book, you can always leave a review, but I had given a free sample that I wanted them to review. So one workaround is to send Amazon gift cards to all your readers on your list. You can just send them, like, depending on how much the book is, just send an email gift card to them. But my idea was to try to get people to actually buy the full book, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm still figuring out how I might best do that. But for me, I feel like people that took the step back to email me and say, hey, I want to leave a review, that might be the person I'm like, here's the Amazon gift card, or, here's the actual book. I know you're going to do the work. I know this is interesting to you and you want to read it. So I've kind of weeded out people that'll just forget about it and have this awesome PDF copy of my book they never look at, versus somebody who will say, hey, I want to leave you a review. Yeah, your review is definitely worth it to me. Here's a gift card, or let me just give you the book so you can go ahead and get that review on Amazon. So that's sort of the workaround that I figured out. So far, I'm sure I'll learn more with my 3rd book launch. I'm learning every time I launch something. So it's been good. It's been really great. The Mastermind episode was so helpful. I'm just so thankful to be working with both of you on our businesses and to help other women in business too. It's been a really great season for me. So
Great. All right. Well, I went back and I listened to and I listened to my mastermind, and I 100% agree with what Kelly was saying earlier, which is like, when you're sitting there and you're listening to the feedback from the group, you're capturing some of it, but then some of it is just like, your brain is moving too much and you're not grabbing everything. And so it was really funny because even at the end of my mastermind, I noticed that I said, I'm going to have to listen to this again because I'm sure there's going to be more that I need to pull out of that. So, even for anyone out there, if you've listened to an episode and you got something out of it, it might be worth another listen because there might be some more little nuggets of value in there, some more mindset shifts. So for me, I was talking about how I've had a few wins and I was getting stuck with not promoting myself and not letting people know that, I had this win, so someone clearly sees value in what I'm giving. You should hire me too. Like that's essentially what my issue was. Like I was having the wins, but then I wasn't using that to get to the next step. Right. And so one of the things that I wrote was, like updating my social media accounts and like Instagram. And so I actually went through and I updated my Instagram. I wrote, I've been featured on Forbes, and I went back and I did some more like calculating so that I could figure out like, I paid off my debt by what age, and I, hit my first 100K by what age, so that I could share that too. So people could see that, I'm not just talking, like there's experience behind that. And so I did that on my Instagram, and then I went back to my website and I've been updating that. I said I was going to work on a speaker's reel, and I got my speaker's reel done. It's a,
Good. That's amazing.
So it's not professional, but it's got all these different talks sewn together now, and this podcast, again, same as you, Nicole, has helped me learn so much, like, as you said, when you're launching your book, you've learned so much just from each launch. And so working with the podcast helped me learn enough about, like audio editing, so that when I did my speaker's reel, I could put, the music in the background and kind of get all that together. Awesome. So the one thing I didn't do, which I need to do still, I have engaged my email list more since our mastermind. Email is just such a challenge for me. I feel so, I don't know, awkward, I guess, sending people emails. But I have engaged them, but I haven't sent them yet all the places where I've shared my story. So that's one thing I still need to do. Like the whole I was featured on Forbes thing, I haven't sent my email list that yet. And so, yeah, I'm going to work on that. But I've seen a lot of growth, and I've seen a lot of movement. Sorry. I've seen a lot of movement. I've actually been on some other podcasts, and I've been reaching out to people to be on other podcasts as guests. So I'm just, pushing and tuning my story and tuning my message and letting people know how I can help. So it's been really good. The power of a mastermind.
Yes. I love it. I love to hear everybody and how far we've come and much we've learned, right?
Does anybody else want to add anything else to that? Or did we want to move on to talk about, what we're looking forward to for the next season? Or Nicole, do you think we should cover your question first?
I feel like we maybe can do my question next, which was, and I know we all got a lot of value from our own masterminds, and I'm going to repeat again, going back and listening to something versus being a part of it. It's just a totally different feeling, and you get so much more out of it. So my question, though, for all three of us is, what was your most valuable either takeaway from our season, or what was your favorite episode and why? And I can start if you guys want time to think a little bit. Is that fine with you guys? Yeah. So great. So I think my biggest takeaway from the overall season was just seeing how much it is possible. Like for me, that whole balance thing of you can balance your work and your family life. It's completely easy to just do everything. And I knew that wasn't the case, but having this podcast, every episode is like, yes, there is ways to balance. Sometimes there's a season for this. Sometimes you're going to lean in more to the work part. And sometimes you're going to lean in more to the family part. And this pandemic taught us, hey, sometimes all of a sudden all your kids are home. So whatever you had on your list for your business that day, or your nanny quit, whatever you had on the list for your clients that day. Yeah, Kelly. It's like, we realize that there's a balance. There's not a balance. It's really like how to be sustainable and know how to prioritize when to do this and when to do that. What's the most important thing for you? So that was sort of my takeaway from every episode. It was like, how are women doing this? And the truth is, they're not always like balancing everything, and we're not always like in perfect control, and we're not always like this amazing, perfect picture of the working woman that I always think of like from the 80s or something, like the working women, those movies where they had their high heels and you never saw their kids. I don't know. I guess they were happy somewhere, but I just feel like that's not what today's women is. And women who are in enterprise, it is possible to do everything the way that it works for you and to make the goals that matter to you. So that was like my biggest takeaway from our whole season. I hope that continues to be a takeaway for every season. But in this one in particular, I was grappling with that balance thing. And I'm glad to know it's not a balance. It made me happy to know it's not a balance. And I think that was from Melissa's episode.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, you looked like you wanted to say something there.
I don't know. There's a lot to say. That's my problem. I think when I think about the woman balancing things, I always think of like today's woman, like a baby wearing mother, but who's also, who's that guy who carries the earth on his shoulders?
Atlas.
Yeah, like Atlas Shrugs. But I think of that like Atlas. Like Alice should have been a woman, and just like holding it. And it's interesting, like that's an image that is out there on the interwebs, but I don't think it's like it looks too clean. It's not that like disheveled mess of here we go. So I loved all of it. I think like the process, I think for all of us, the one unspoken thing is like this process of having a podcast and doing the first season is a huge goal that has come to fruition. And that's like a huge win. So we're excited about it. I don't know how other people about it. And just such a huge learning process. And I think to be able to kind of pull it off while, you're without a nanny or like my brick and mortar is kind of like busting at the seams right now, which is really great. And then all these other things happening. So that balance piece is huge. The decision fatigue is huge, but it has always like been a great outlet for me to think of like, what are areas I'm struggling with in my business that other people might be struggling with too? And then how can we communicate this? And that's where I think the decision fatigue episode came out. And I absolutely loved I loved our interviews. I thought those were just so great. It was so great to hear each person's perspective and how they engage the world and business and all of that, and what you see in others. And I think those were my favorite episodes that I end up recommending to people a lot. And so I think it's fun. I'll always find myself saying like, oh, Melissa talks about it here, or Nicole talks about ADHD here. And I think those were some pretty amazing pieces that I absolutely love. So decision fatigue was huge. Hearing your guys' stories and like the helping streamline breakfast. Breakfast isn't like entirely better, but I did delegate it a little bit. Like when the sitter comes, I'm like, here you go. And then like, we've been doing the oatmeal cereal. Like, I'm like, do you want oatmeal or do you want cereal? And we'll see. So there's those little things that have been really helpful. And then also just seeing like my learning about myself in the process of doing a podcast. So like when you guys were interviewing me, I was like, oh man, they were asking me this. They were talking to me on this level and asking me this, but I responded with this. And I don't know if like what I heard them asking and what I responded with was the same thing. I think it all ended up really well in the end, but it's just really interesting to see what I'm hearing and what other people are saying. Anyways, that's my own process that I have to work through. So, yeah. No.
Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad you mentioned the decision fatigue because I was like, oh, what was the name of that episode? That's the one, and so what I noticed about this season is that we talked a lot about mindset. So there was a lot of mindset talk. We were talking about whether we named it or not. So I'm going to say things like imposter syndrome, fear of rejection, fear of conflict. Like we were talking about all these mindset things. And that's really helpful and it's really valuable. But I'm so glad you mentioned things that were also very actual steps you could take, because sometimes mindset stuff can be a little bit like broad and hard to like grasp. And so like what you just said about the fact that you're trying cereal and oatmeal, like those are actual, like you apply it right away, and it's either going to work or it's not, but you can test it. Like it's very quick to test those kinds of things. And so I think that's good. So I'm really happy that we kind of had a mix of mindset stuff, but then we also talked about, God, I can't think of the right word. Tactics sounds wrong.
Strategies, maybe.
There you go. Thank you, Kelly. Practical application.
Yeah.
And so we had, breakfast, minimize, like simplifying. And we talked about with Nicole, pricing. Like those are actual practical applications of ways that you can, push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Or, well, like you said, we're all trying something new here. And I think that in itself was, a challenge, and we're all pushing outside of our comfort zone, trying this podcasting. And I really hope that people found it helpful. I think that was actually another great thing was that, I mean, I know Kelly, you mentioned it, and Nicole, you mentioned it, and I even experienced it where people were coming to us and were like, hey, I listened to that episode and I really liked it and I found it helpful. And it's like, yes, okay, good. What we're sharing is being useful to people. It is helping someone outside of just the three of us. And that's always really, really cool to hear. So,
yeah. So we're going to move on to our talking about season 2, because I'm very excited about season 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just going to jump in and say, like, one of the things that I'm looking forward to is hearing more about Kelly and how she like doubled her income year after year. Like, I'm like, oh, like this is something I want to know more about. And I feel like there's going to be mindset stuff on there, but I also feel like I'm gonna keep pushing till I learn some of the practical application stuff so I can, apply it to my own business. So yeah, that's one of the things I'm excited about. I'm excited, to go through more masterminds and with everyone and just identify some more issues. And I know that we don't do this in our masterminds, but I think it would be something good to do as a topic discussion would be to talk about the tools. So just to keep mastermind simple, I wouldn't add it to that. But I was like, we all have these tools that we use which help us do what we need to do. And so I think an episode in there, hopefully we can do one on tools that we all use, however it helps us to get to our stuff. So how about you ladies?
I love that. I agree that tools, and it's funny, we talk about how we did things, but we don't always say what we use to do it. So it's really important to say, hey, I use this app or I use this website, right? And that's so important. I'm actually really excited about coaching women and helping them build their business. So we have a coaching offer that's in beta right now. And I have just gotten like that feedback we've gotten from people who get value from this. I feel like coaching women and helping them build their businesses will give me just like, that's really impactful, right? Like, it's not just that you heard our message and you're able to apply some things, but when you come back and say, hey, I was able to sell more books, or hey, I got a speaking gig that pays me $1,000 because you did coaching with us, that to me, that sort of impact is really got me moving for season 2. So I hope if you haven't heard that we offer coaching, and it's 3-to-1, so you're getting 3 business brains to 1. And we can't wait to help you with all the hopefully different gifts you've seen and the perspectives we offer. I just really hope we can get some women on here, and it'd be wonderful if they agree to record an episode with us so we can really live coach, or even just coach separately. That's really got me fired up for season 2, is helping a lot of other women make moves in their business. Yeah. And what about you, Kelly?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That would be like my biggest drive in the world is that part where it's the nitty gritty of like where you're at, where every like woman is at in her business is where the rubber meets the road, and where you make impact on your family and in your community and in those around you. And it really is the space that changes lives. And I think that's my favorite part, is to be able to be a part of that and to be able to do, like, however small or big, to be a part of that and have that space. Yeah, I love that a lot. I love, we're kind of like throwing around names of people potentially to interview and things like that. And I love those opportunities that we're thinking about. And I keep thinking of other ones. I'm full of ideas, and I just have to kind of like rein those in. And then I'm also excited. I think next, I'm in the midst of like just kind of scaling my brick and mortar, and I think it'll be great to have more information to like offer on that part of the process of building your business, is that scalability piece. And I feel like if my projections are right for next year, like I'll be taking on a couple like staff and stuff like that, like, oh, I know that it would be like, it's potential that I could like quadruple what I made last year. Right?
Oh.
So it's like this year would be like a little bit like, this is my like pressure point year where I do all the strategizing and planning. And then I was like, wait, here's this. So we'll see how it comes out. But I was like, this is really astronomical. Were places where I like moved forward and took more risk when everybody was retreating, like that. I think it'll potentially benefit everything. So even if it's like just even if it's not quadruple, that's fine. But I was like, wow, this is more than, like, when I'm looking at the numbers and the possibility, it's like astronomically more than I realized, like the potential gain. I know.
Isn't that amazing? It's astronomically more than I realized.
Yeah. It's great.
Awesome.
I couldn't even imagine that piece. And I feel like it's fun. I don't know. I should back up. But I was like doing numbers and doing some things of like different points of growth in my brick and mortar that I'm like, oh man, this is going to be amazing. And I'll have way more tools on where I've been stuck for a long time. So I'm really excited.
I agree. We should do a numbers episode. I mean, the two of you together, I'm not the numbers girl, but you two are. And to work through our numbers would probably be so fun and like cool transparency. Just to go through, not specific numbers, but just how we've jumped or just strategies we've used. I think that's such a great idea, Kelly.
Yeah, well, I'm a lazy numbers girl. Like Square has it all, right? Like I use like other systems. Like I don't know. If it involved me doing math, it wouldn't get done. So like if I have so I'll use like Square appointments right now, but it automatically compares like this year's income versus last year's income and all of that.
Oh, that's good.
So awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
That totally reminded me. I don't know what episode it was, but it was the one where you talked about childbirth. And I was like, I think that was such a great story to share with women, is the idea that, there is struggle and hard difficulties that you have to kind of like crest over during the process. But, just like in birth, you have people supporting you there, and that helps. And so so just the realization, okay, it's okay for it to be hard, but I can find the support group that's going to help me get through the challenge. So I thought that was amazing in that episode. I'll have to go look which episode it was again.
Yeah, that was an awesome takeaway. I remember it.
It was me. It was episode.
It was Kelly's.
It was me when you were interviewing me about episode.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and just that like loneliness of birth, and you're the only one who can do it and bring it to the other side. And there can be teams that support you, and help you keep your eye on the prize. But yeah.
So we are going to be taking a small break. But our next season is going to start December 1st. And we will be doing season 2. So make sure that you subscribe so that you get that notification as soon as we release the new episode. And visit our website, because that's where you can find all the links for our Instagram accounts individually, or the group Her Enterprise account, where you can follow us. We have plans to get on there live once in a while, answer questions during our break time while we prepare for season 2. And then send us an email. We want to talk to you. We want to know what you're up to, and we want to know how we can help, or what topics you're really curious to hear more about, and get 3 different perspectives from. So send us an email. All this stuff you can find on our website, her-enterprise.com.
Right. And don't forget to apply for a mastermind, and then you could join and become a part of season 2.
Yes.
That would be really fun.
Yes, you could. It would be awesome. I just love working with you all so much. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I love how it's going, and I'm excited for season 2.
Yay! And I'm excited for feedback to hear from everybody else too, how it's like impacting them even more. I know the little bits that we've heard is really good, but I think it will be good. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Hey, change makers. Thank you so much for tuning in to Her Enterprise episode 011. There's not much more to say. Obviously, we covered a lot in this summary episode, but what I really hope that you can take away is how much change can happen, how much growth can happen with masterminding, having a group of women who are rallying around you, that you can be honest with about where you're feeling stuck, where you're struggling, and then ask for feedback. That's amazing. It's so hard as an entrepreneur to be able to make connections that serve us on a day-to-day basis. And so, we are so happy. This podcast was born from the connections that we made in a mastermind. And so there you go. Just another example of how masterminding can help you reach new goals and help you stand outside your comfort zone. So don't forget to subscribe. Our season 2 will be starting December 1st. In the meantime, go back and listen to those previous episodes if you haven't heard them before, or if you have. Kelly, Nicole, and I all felt like we got so much more out of it listening it to the second time around. We really are looking forward to hearing more from our listeners and understanding what topics do you want to know more about. So visit us at her-enterprise.com and send us an email. We'd love to connect. We want to have conversations with you. The ladies from Her Enterprise are a women's collective of knowledge, inspiration, and connection. We are change makers. This is a podcast for the whole person. It is for you and your business. On this podcast, you'll hear a mix of interviews, topic discussions, and experience the power of masterminding. Let's grow, let's flourish, let's rise with Her Enterprise. Are you ready to be a change maker? Hit subscribe.